So Claude Code's got a memory problem, and this free tool just fixes it. Your AI starts reading your whole code base like a map, so you get better answers for way fewer tokens. And the best part, it's totally free, and it's just one command. So we'll install it, map your code, and prove it works live. Let's jump in. The tool is called Graphify. It's open source, it's completely free, and as I'm recording this, it just crossed 77,000 stars on GitHub. The idea behind it is simple, and once you hear it, you can't unhear it. Right now, when your AI coding assistant needs to understand your project, it greps. It does the equivalent of hitting Ctrl+F across your whole code base, pulling in whole files, hoping the answer is somewhere in the pile. It has no map, it's standing in a city with no street signs, opening every single door to find one room. Graphify hands it the map. Instead of searching blind, your assistant gets a graph where it's already clear how this piece of code connects to that one and why. Think about the difference between me telling you to go find a friend's house by knocking on every door on the street versus handing you their exact address. Same city, completely different amount of work. That's the whole pitch. And the rest of this video is me proving it's true on my own code. Now, how does it actually build that map? It happens in 3 passes, and the first one is the part people underestimate. The first pass reads your code structure, and it is completely free. No AI involved at all. It uses something called a tree sitter parser to walk through every file and pull out your classes, your functions, your imports, who calls who. This is deterministic. It's not guessing. It's reading the code the way the code is actually written and writing down the connections that are literally there. On my app, that first free pass alone found 1,338 pieces of code and nearly 3,000 connections between them. The second pass handles any audio or video in your project. If you've got screen recordings or voice notes, it transcribes them and folds them into the graph too. And the third pass is where the AI finally shows up. It reads your docs, your PDFs, your images, and it does the semantic work, figuring out what a document actually means and where it belongs in the bigger picture. Only that last pass costs you anything, and it's the small one. Once all 3 passes are done, it assembles the graph itself. And there are 3 words you'll want to know because you'll see them everywhere. Nodes, which are the individual pieces, the little circles. Edges, which are the lines connecting 2 things that are related. And communities, which are clusters of nodes that naturally belong together. When Graphify finished with my app, it had grouped everything into 108 communities. And here's the part that got me. Those weren't random. Each community was an actual subsystem of my app that I built. The auth system, the thumbnail pipeline, the publishing flow. It found the shape of my own project without me telling it anything. Now, you probably have a question here, and it's a good one. Is this the same thing as ArrayG? If you've played with AI at all, you've heard of ArrayG, Retrieval Augmented Generation. And the honest answer is it's related, but it's not the same. The biggest difference is embeddings. A normal RAG system chops your documents into chunks and turns them into vectors. Graphify doesn't do that. It builds explicit named connections instead of fussy similarity scores. The rule of thumb you can walk away with is this. When you're dealing with a code base, something with real structure where things genuinely call and depend on each other, Graphify is what you want. When you've got 10,000 loose documents with no structure and you just want to ask questions across them, that's where classic RAG still shines. Use the right tool. For code, this is the one. Okay, enough theory. Let's actually set this up because this is the part where you follow along. Getting it running is genuinely 2 steps. You install it with a single pip command, and then you drop the skill into your assistant. That's it. I'm going to run it right now on this very app so you see the real thing, not a polished replay. I point it at my project, and the first thing it does is detect what it's working with. It finds my files, sorts them into code and documents, and gives me the count. Then that free structural pass kicks off the tree sitter one. And this is fast because there's no AI in the loop yet. You can watch it walk the files. Then the semantic pass fires off to read the docs and the design notes. A minute or two later, it's done, and the result lands on screen. 1,379 nodes, 2,835 edges, 108 communities. That's my entire application mapped, sitting in a file I can hand to Claude Code, and you can explore it. You can open the graph and literally see your app laid out. I can click into a community and there's my authentication system, all the functions that touch user identity clustered together with the lines showing exactly how a request flows from a token to a logged in user. I have never seen my own code presented like this, and I wrote all of it. And once the map exists, you get commands that used to be impossible. You can ask it to explain any single piece of your code in plain language, and it answers using the connections around it, not just the file it lives in. You can ask for the shortest path between two parts of your app. Say, how does a thumbnail actually end up published? And it traces the exact chain of functions from one end to the other. On my app, it walked me from the upload handler all the way to the publish call, every hop in between. That's the kind of question a new engineer spends a whole afternoon answering by hand. Here it's one line and you get it in seconds. This is the part that turns the graph from a nice diagram into something you actually reach for every day. But a pretty picture isn't proof. So let's run the test that actually matters, the one that decides whether this is worth your time. I'm going to ask the same real question two different ways. The question is, how does user identity and authentication resolve across this app, and what depends on it? That's a genuine architecture question, the kind you ask when you're onboarding to a code base or about to change something scary. First, the old way, the way your assistant works today without the graph. To answer that, it greps for the obvious terms, the auth functions, the database calls, and then it reads the files those terms show up in. On my app, those terms show up in 20 different files. And because one of my files is a 10,000 line monster, reading them all in would cost you around 260,000 tokens just to set up the answer. That's most of a context window gone before it's even thought about your actual question. Now, the graph way. Same question, but this time it walks the map. It starts at the auth nodes and traverses outward to the things connected to them. And instead of dumping whole files, it comes back with the exact answer, the specific functions, the precise file and line numbers, and the reasoning for why they connect. That entire answer, the whole context it needed, came to 1,300 tokens. And it was more correct because it followed the real call paths instead of guessing from a pile of text. Let me put those side by side because the gap is almost absurd. 265,000 tokens versus 1,300. That is roughly a 200 times reduction on my real code. And I want to be honest with you because you'll see other people throw around numbers like 70 times. On a small, tidy code base, 70 is fair. The reason mine is so much bigger is precisely because my app is messy, one giant file doing too much. And that's the real lesson. The more tangled your code base, the more this saves you. The projects that are hardest for AI to understand are exactly the ones this helps the most. There's one more thing you need, or none of this lasts. A map is only useful if it matches the streets. So Graphify can install a tiny hook that rebuilds the graph every time you commit. You write code like normal, and the map quietly stays current in the background. It doesn't rot. And that structural rebuild is the free deterministic pass, so keeping it fresh costs you nothing. So let's put a bow on it. If you're working on anything real, anything with more than a handful of files, your AI assistant is currently reading your code the hard way, and you're paying for it in tokens and in wrong answers. Graphify gives it a map instead. Free to run, open source, one pip install, and it works with Claude Code, Cursor, Codex, whatever you use. For a messy code base like mine, it turned a 250,000 token question into a 1,300 token one and made the answer better in the process. That's not a small optimization. That's a different way of working. If you want to start a business using AI agents like this, come check out our community in the description down below. It's where I share everything I build. And go check out this video right here where I show you the exact workflow I use to ship these projects. Click it on the screen right now, and I'll see you in the next one.